Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today. I'm Jamey, that's Dave, that's Adam. It's time for starts and sits for week number 3, and we start in the place where we usually do, the start of the week, and this one is going to come through. That's right, finally, I'm overdue. Tyson Williams headed for a big week in week number 3 as the Ravens take on the Lions. He's been their best running back. Now, you can make a case that he's made mistakes. Clearly, week 1 had some blocking issues. Week 2 had the fumble at the goal line, but he's playing, at least in week 2, played as many snaps by himself as the combination of Latavius Murray and Devontae Freeman. Over 90 total yards last week, 2 catches per week, so they're continuing to involve him in the passing game. And this Lions defense, obviously not very good, as we've seen each of the 2 weeks. First off, they've given up 6 touchdowns to running backs. We saw week 1, it was supposed to be Raheem Mostert, but it was Elijah Mitchell. Week 2, it was Aaron Jones. Now, he's not in the same category as Aaron Jones, but he's probably on the same level as a guy like Elijah Mitchell. So you see here, top 20 running back for myself and Dave. Borderline starter, this is PPR for Heath. Sportsline likes him as a number 2 running back. So, Dave, what do you like about Tyson Williams as well in this matchup?
My favorite stat on Tyson Williams this year, he's the only running back in the NFL who ranks in the top 5 in yards before contact per attempt and yards after contact per attempt, Jamey. That means that offensive line creating lanes for him to run through, and he's doing well, breaking tackles and picking up some steam. Fewer mistakes last week as well. I agree with you. I think he's the best running back on the Ravens. I had a hard time keeping him out of my top 12 in non-PPR. I think he's got a really good weekend.
Yeah, he's 12th for me in non-PPR, so excited about Tyson Williams. And then, Adam, for you, my starts. This is a theme for Adam Azer. Let's go Giants. Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard. Now, 2 of those guys you didn't expect to be starting when the season opened, Daniel Jones and Sterling Shepard. Jones has been fantastic, top 10 quarterback, so great matchup against the Falcons. Shepard's been awesome. We told you in the offseason he had a chance to be good. He's been better than that, 19 targets in the first 2 games. This is now 5 games in a row going back to last year with at least 18 PPR points, so he should keep it rolling against Atlanta. And then Barkley's the one that you think, okay, we have to tell you to start him? Well, that's the case. Yeah, we have to tell you to start him. Saquon Barkley's been bad through the first 2 weeks of the season. I think he keeps it going thinks he gets going, in week number 3. The 41-yard run was nice to see last week against Washington. The 80+% snap share was great to see that they're trusting him. So 10 days of rest. Falcons not great. I think Barkley has his best game of the season, and this is the jumping off point. So if you tried to trade for him, do it now, or you're trying to trade for him, do it now, because you're going to miss your opportunity after this week. Dave, let's take a look at your starts here. You got Justin Herbert, a couple running backs in the AFC East, Myles Gaskin and James White, and a couple of tight ends as well in Logan Thomas and Jared Cook. Let's talk about the running backs here, because Gaskin and the Dolphins, everything is sort of changing. The offensive line's a mess. The quarterback is different with Tua out. And then for James White, is it just a PPR start, or is it every format that you could trust?
I'm actually okay with James White in non-PPR as well, but of course PPR is where it's at for James White. He's clearly the passing downs running back for the Patriots, but this matchup against New Orleans, maybe they think about doing something that Damian Harris fantasy managers won't like and take to the air a little bit more. White, if they're playing more on passing downs, he'll play more. We have him as a floor of 45 yards and 6 catches in each of 2 games. That doesn't include anything he does as a runner. I think he's got a chance to get you close to 10 non-PPR points, well over 10 PPR points. He is a low-end starter for me. And Gaskin, victim of circumstance last week. Everybody's worried about how much playing time he had. Dolphins were getting blown out. He played 80% of the snaps in the first half. He played every single snap in the 2-minute offense. I think the Dolphins would be smart to bounce back and be more balanced now that Jacoby Brissett's the quarterback and run it with Myles Gaskin against a Raiders defense that held their own against the Steelers in week 2, but got absolutely blasted by the Ravens in week 1.
Yeah, we'll see. His site of his best game ever was last season in Las Vegas, so hopefully Gaskin can do that again going into week number 3. Let's go to Adam's starts here, and you got a couple of four wide receivers on this list that you're excited about. So you got Marquise Brown, who's been fantastic. You're going with Kenny Golladay as the other Giants guy here. We'll talk about him in a second. Beckham, Devontae Smith, and Miles Sanders. So start with Golladay, because I think a lot of people are curious. First off, he's injured, dealing with a hip injury. But if he plays as expected, is this going to be the best game for him that we've seen so far this season?
It better be. Otherwise, you might have a total bust on your hands. I really think he may have been screaming at Jason Garrett and not Daniel Jones. But either way, we like it when number 1 wide receivers are mad and want the ball more, whatever that was. We like that. And I'm not as high on Sterling Shepard rest of season as everybody else is, because Evan Ingram's coming back hopefully this week, and I think Golladay will get more involved, and Barkley might get more involved in the passing game. I expect from this point forward Golladay to be the best wide receiver on the Giants. The reason why I liked him as a number 3 receiver was he was really good when David Blau and Jeff Driscoll were his quarterbacks. in Detroit. I mean, over 1,000 yards and scoring touchdowns. So I think he can do that with Daniel Jones. I'm not saying he's a must start this week, but I'm open-minded. I feel the same way about him as I do about Beckham. I think he's a number 3 wide receiver. Some of the names that you guys might have ahead of him that I wouldn't would be just based on the consensus rankings I saw earlier. Michael Pittman, Rondale Moore, I would start unless Hopkins is out. But if Hopkins plays, I would start Kenny Golladay over those guys. I think he's going to have a nice game.
And he was, according to reports, yelling at Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett meeting with the media on Thursday. And here's what he said. He said he loves Kenny Golladay. That's in quotes. This is according to Zach Rosenblatt. Says he had no issue with what happened. They had a good visit after the game and thinks certain things can be handled differently, but they're fine. And according to Garrett, it wasn't a big deal. I'm not going to keep talking about this. Thanks, Coach. We appreciate that. In any event, you have Beckham as a start. We said he is going to play practice in full. Dave, you have him as a sit. So we'll show Dave sits here, and you guys can have a little Beckham debate. So Adam, make the case for, and then Dave, make the case against.
We probably don't feel that differently. It's a 3-receiver league, maybe versus 2-receiver. I don't know. I just think he's a number 3 guy. And, yeah, he wasn't that great last year, but when he's had good matchups with the Browns, he's done well. And I think this is a good enough matchup. I'm not sure I'm sold on that secondary for the Chicago Bears. And, again, no Jarvis Landry. That is a huge deal for me. If Odell Beckham does not lead the team in targets, I'm going to be disappointed. So I think he finds 5 catches and has a decent chance to find the end zone.
I don't disagree that he might lead the team in targets. It might just be 5 targets because this is a Browns offense that doesn't throw a lot. And I said it earlier on the show, I'm worried about Baker Mayfield throwing the football. And we haven't seen Odell play since last year. I know there have been lots of videos where he looks sharp. I want to see it first. I don't have to rush Odell into my lineup. I can't be that desperate at wide receiver to force him in ahead of a lot of other guys that have started to step up and a lot of other wide receivers that have just managed to remain healthy for the first 2 weeks of the season. So I'm taking a cautious approach with Odell Beckham. It is a good matchup for him. I just wish he had been playing already, and I wish Baker hadn't gotten hurt last week.
All right, you also have Clyde Edwards-Helaire on your sit list, Dave. What's the concern with him?
He's not scoring. He's not catching a lot of passes. I know he's running a lot of routes, but he's not getting targeted by Patrick Mahomes. And each of the first 2 games, he's lost out on a short yardage goal line carry, once to Patrick Mahomes and once to Darrell Williams. He seems to be one of those running backs. Adam refers to it as a trap back, someone who's only running between the 20s, not getting a lot of those high-value touches in the air and near the goal line.
One thing that I'm curious about, and look, I don't think a lot of people are going to outright sit him, but he's not going to be a must-start guy like he has been because he's starting to fall into that zone of can you trust him, and the fumble last week was bad. This happened last year with the Chiefs when Mecole Hardman had a fumble in the playoffs, and they rallied around him in the game. It was an early fumble. I think it was against the Browns. And Travis Kelce picked him up. Patrick Mahomes picked him up. I went to see what happened after the fumble, and Patrick Mahomes, right? Andy Reid, Mecole Hardman, yeah. But in terms of CEH, Andy Reid said he's still our guy. Patrick Mahomes says we can't go anywhere unless he's going to be the running back that we need to be. Travis Kelce said, he's our guy, essentially. They're just rallying around him. And this Chargers defense, we've seen them. They struggled against the run the first 2 weeks of the season. Gibson had a good game against them. Obviously, Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott both had a great game against this defense. This feels like it could be a bounce-back spot for him. Again, I don't think he's a must-start guy. He's more of a low-end number 2 flex guy, so I think where we have him ranked consensusly is fine. And again, you better have great options to bench him. Don't bench. I've seen a lot of Tony Pollard for Clyde Edwards there. Don't do that. But I just wonder if this is going to be a game where he does bounce back and starts to play a little bit better because now the team maybe is going to rally behind him and they give him some of those opportunities, hopefully to score, maybe some opportunities in the passing game as well. The sits for you, Adam, you got Justin Fields, Kareem Hunt, all the Dolphins. Sit all the Dolphins at the Raiders. So not trusting Dave's suggestion to start Myles Gaskin. You're going against that one. You're sitting a Rams running back. Sony Michel is most likely going to start based on the rib injury for Darrell Henderson. And then you're sitting the Washington DST. Might be the first time we've had a DST as a sit suggestion, but a good call by you on that one. But let's talk about Justin Fields because a lot of people are curious. Can he deliver on what the preseason expectations were? Is this the matchup to trust him as he's starting for the injured Andy Dalton taking on the Browns?
I don't think you can use the word trust with Fields. He was 6 of 13 for 60 yards and an interception. I think he's going to run a lot, though. I don't know what the player prop is, but I think he might have 70 rushing yards. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. But Cleveland, their defense is better than what they've shown. They're having a lot of trouble getting off the field. They are the worst third down defense. However, they're getting a lot of pressure on third down. So that feels very fluky to me. I could see Fields taking advantage of that if that trend continues and he's able to escape pressure. You could see those pass rushers coming right at him. He runs around him and makes a play. But on the other hand, I definitely see a situation where the Browns defense gets right a little bit after they were pretty disappointing against Tyrod Taylor in the first half of last week's game. So for Fields, I don't see how you can trust him. In the preseason, he made a lot of mistakes. In the regular season, he made mistakes. He's going to probably fumble once or twice. He's going to throw an interception. He's going to turn the ball over. I don't see him throwing for a lot of yards. The rushing totals could save him. You absolutely need to have him on your roster and put him on your bench, but you do not start him this week.
I guess the only thing I would say is, first off, you're 100% right in everything you're saying, but the only thing I guess I would look at is we probably had similar concerns with Jalen Hurts when he took over last year for the Eagles. Just a raw quarterback. We knew he was going to run. And we saw, there was clearly some highs and lows in the 3 starts that he made. I'm not going to put the Week 17 game where he got pulled stupidly by Doug Peterson. But in the 3 starts that he made, there were some clearly some growing pains. But those rushing numbers are so hard to overlook. And I think that's where, if you're going to start Justin Fields, like you said, Adam, that's what you're going to have to rely on. So we'll see if he is able to do that. As again, Pete Prisco told us yesterday on FFT here, expect a lot of design, rollouts, whether he's running or just getting out of the pocket. We're going to see some different things from this Bears offense, and hopefully that leads to good production, not only for him, but also for Allen Robinson and for Darnell Mooney. My sits for week number 3, Joe Burrow taking on the Steelers, healthy or not. I'm not going to trust him in that matchup. Kareem Hunt, Jamal Williams, 2 running backs that were certainly started last week. I would pull back on both those guys to whatever extent you are doing that this week. And then Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith, 2 options at tight end and wide receiver, respectively, that you might want to get away from. Kareem Hunt is clearly the star of this group. And as we've seen, the last 10 games with Nick Chubb healthy, he has 4 games with 14 or more PPR points and 4 games with 6 PPR points or less. He's going to need to score to have success against this Bears defense. And we saw the Bears week 1, they gave up a rushing touchdown to Darrell Henderson. Week 2, they shut down Joe Mixon. So this run defense is certainly good. It may not be great, but I think if Hunt is held out of the end zone, you're going to be a little disappointed because Nick Chubb's still doing great things for this Browns offense. I don't fear Nick Chubb. I do fear Kareem Hunt a little bit. Did have 13 carries last week, but that was in essentially a blowout win against the Texans once Tyrod Taylor left the game. So Kareem Hunt is still a good flex, but not a must-start running back taking on this Bears defense. Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and non-stop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.